Hey everyone and welcome. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give my presentation related to the new normal. My name is Dr. Clayton Miller. I'm here on behalf of a much larger team. You can see all the list of names below from both NUS and from the University of California, Berkeley, between the Buds Lab and the BEARS program or SimberBest program at Berkeley. Today I'm going to talk to you about the new normal, but first I want to talk about what was happening even before COVID-19 was hitting. Turns out through a lot of industry surveys that there was a lot of unused office space and spaces in the built environment already. Up to 40% of office spaces were empty. People were wasting space by not using the spaces that were allocated to them. And then COVID-19 hit. This crisis proved that anyone can basically work from away from their desk. And the office space as we know it has changed quite a bit. Remote work is becoming more possible. People are getting used to it. They're learning all the tools and they're doing things like what we're doing now, being on Zoom. There's a recent survey that came out in The Economist a couple weeks ago that showed that even though people are allowed to come back to the office, quite a few people are still staying at home at least part of the time and working from home at least 1 or 2 days a week. People are willing to take pay cuts to be able to do this longer term. It turns out when you work from home, average meeting lengths appear to decline significantly, which who doesn't like a shorter meeting? So there's a shift in working habits, and that is pushing changing the way we use office space and the way we use spaces in general. So our research community, I think, needs to respond to that, and we have a hypothesis which I'd like to present to you today. The old way of using offices for most of the last century included an office worker who had a desk. So you would go into the office, you'd sit down at a desk and use that desk. But now we have a lot more options. We can go into the office, use a desk, we can work from a collaborative space, we can work from a home office, and we have lots of different options. So this is really could change. There's a paradigm shift of how we control spaces, how we operate, and we manage them. So old school way is we have these dedicated spaces. They're also generically comfortable. We have maybe some noise and privacy issues because you have people chatting in places and bothering people that are trying to focus. And everything is separated by teams and logical function. Well, with COVID, all of that stuff has gotten thrown out the window. Bob is working from here and Jenny's working from here. And everybody is working together even though they're not physically right next to each other. So we have an opportunity. We can start to devote spaces towards what people really like them for. So we could have devoted spaces for people who really need or want it. So people who definitely come into the office every day, who have certain equipment and things they need to put in certain places. And then everyone else has more flexible options. They can choose private, intense working spaces. They can look at collaborative spaces. We can also start nudging them to make the best choices to help impact their thermal comfort. So we could have cool, private spaces, warmer zones. We could optimize certain spaces to be conversation friendly, to have higher thresholds of noise. So we're really moving from old to new, where before you had devoted spaces, now to more flex-based spaces. One size fits all to more personalized, put it on my calendar versus just-in-time allocation. So even before COVID in 2019, we had a project called SpaceMatch, which was designed to guide people in these directions. The thing that we learned, and so basically a person could find a place to sit, they could leave feedback, and they could find out information about the space itself. So we set up different zones of comfort. We deployed SpaceMatch, and we tried to collect data to be able to sort of create models to nudge people towards those spaces. We found out through this process that we were able to sort of cluster people according to their preferences, as you can see here, but there wasn't really enough longitudinal data. We didn't really go that step further to create models. So based on that experience, we decided that to supplement this, we need to figure out how to create like buttons for spaces in the same way that larger other companies, internet companies, develop models to predict what people like. How do we make a like button for spaces, and how do we take into account their temporal and spatial dimensions? So out of this need, we created the Cozy platform, which I presented last time in OB20, but since then, we've open sourced it. That's been started to be adopted by various research groups from around the world in different locations. And this is a platform built on the Fitbit platform to be able to ask questions and collect data towards developing these personalized models. So we created kind of a data collection infrastructure, which is collecting data from Fitbit, from localized apps, from near body temperatures, and then also figuring out the physical proximity between the people and devices. So through this, we had 30 participants, which we asked to give 100 feedback points, and we collected over 4,000 data points, which we then put into longitudinally intensive personalized models, which you can read about in the preprint that we have posted. Since then, we've also developed more additional thermal comfort related questions, which you can see here, related to activity and clothing level and whether the person's indoors or outdoors. We have a question flow related to COVID-19 social distancing. So both subjective and objective questions related to people's perception of risk and density of people in spaces. We've created a whole flow related to sound and visual privacy by asking people whether they're part of groups, they're alone, what types of activities that they're doing. Do they feel like they're distracting others, or are they being distracted? Do they feel like they need more privacy? And if so, why? What do they need privacy for? So we've increased the amount of types of questions that we'd like to deploy. We think this is really interesting. In addition, our partners at the SymberBest Lab, Dr. Federico Tartarini, has been spearheading the effort to develop this on Apple Watch as well, because Apple Watch has certain functionality which we can't get from Fitbit. And so the Apple Watch platform will be open up soon. It has like a more of a chatbot style interaction between the phone and the watch, which makes things really cool. And Fitbit and Apple Watch have just come out with new devices which measure more physiological related variables, such as EDA, skin temperature, and blood oxygen levels. So to conclude, COVID-19 has changed things. Things were already changing before. It's really accelerated those things. There's an opportunity to create a diversity of comfort and zones and nudge people towards those zones in this new normal situation. We'd like to deploy Cozy on a larger scale to help accelerate the data creation process of this. Please reach out to me or Federico Tartarini. We'd love to start to figure out how we can deploy a similar methodology amongst lots of locations around the world. And I'll be happy to take any questions at this time. If you'd like to download this presentation, you can scan this QR code to get it. Thanks a lot, and happy to answer any questions.